Here we go. Chapter 28. So the whole section that we're in right now is talking about things that can slow down our train of awesome. Specifically, 26, 27, 28 are things that cause us sadness. Sadness to the point of immobilization. Sadness to the point where can't get going anymore. What's the point of anything? 29, 30, 31, etc. is going to move over to what they call timtum alev, which is loosely translated as apathy. That's the next thing. Back to 28. 26 went through all the physical challenges that we might face. Not just physical challenges, but things in the material world. The Alter Rebbe specified sustenance, children, parnasa, livelihood, and health. Those three things are the three major factors that people kind of worry about day to day. And people believe that those things need most to be in line for us to be happy people. So if there is something not in line with any one of those things, it causes a great amount of aggravation and sadness. So how do I deal with that? That's chapter 26. The punchline of 26 is that God's in control of the world. The sadness that you're going through right now, you got to realign your thought process. And remember who's in control. The fact that you're going through something, it's not a reflection on you in the sense of what you've done. It's a reflection on what you could handle kind of thing. Which is one thing, and also going through this now, it's a challenge. It's part of life is to have these challenges. This is supposed to be something that brings you closer and draws you in. Summarized version that doesn't get into any of the details, but that's a 26. 26 also introduced us to things about sadness that we might have about spiritual things, which one of the ways that you could kind of parallel that in a practical ways, you could think of spiritual challenges. The question is basically things about our character and things about the self-refinement that we're trying to go through. So what about the challenges that we have there? The first one we had is we try to separate atzvos and merirus. They kind of translate as sadness and bitterness, but the general idea is that when we're middle of the day and we're feeling these feelings of sadness come, they see like something that can weigh us down, it's not coming from a good place. It's coming from the wrong place specifically. The question is not whether or not we're validated or it's valid to actually be upset about these sort of things. We don't even address that. As in, that's not what the main focus is. The main focus is, when is this happening to you? The fact that it's slowing down your day, it's crashing your train of awesome, shows that it's not coming from the right place. 27 went more into that, about how do we deal with that. And the general idea was that we got to push it away. Don't fool around with this kind of stuff and just get it out. And not just that, part of why you have sadness right now in, I've worked so hard to control my temper, so why did I lose my temper today? And, anything along those lines. I worked so hard on the mitzvah of blank. I was working so hard on my kavanah during mundane and everything's just tanked. What happened? There's two parts to it. Number one, and this is actually, it was really introduced in 26, when you have two wrestlers, two people are fighting each other, the person who's going to win is the person who shows up and steps up. And as soon as one side starts to win, the other side's like, wait a second, I better up my game. So the fact that things might get harder for us, or things that we've tried so hard to get right, all of a sudden become more challenging. It's not a reflection on the work we've done in a negative. It's a compliment to say you've upped your game, you've gotten better, so that's why it's getting harder for you now. You don't get to stay at level 1. You have now gotten to level 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and the challenges are harder on level 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So first of all, that causes us joy. So that comes back how we're going to get joy in all this. The other thing is that chapter 27 told us is you got to remember what you were created for. The fact that you're upset that you're having these thoughts that are coming at you, specifically in the day-to-day and mundane affairs. Why am I at work and all of a sudden I'm getting this sadness comes over to me and it's such a piece of garbage and da-da-da. We know it's not coming from the right place, but the fact that you're upset that it's coming to you is because you forgot what you were created to be. You forgot how you were actually created. You were created, you're a savory cook. You are not the sweet cook. The dessert kitchen, the dessert chefs, those are tzaddikim. They take darkness and they turn it into light. That's what their job is. You're upset at yourself now because you forgot that your job is the savory job. Your job is to say no. But I keep saying no, yes, because that's what your job is. That's what you're created for. That's 27. So there's actually 3 points that we've had until now. All the thing with dealing with things that could cause us sadness and how do we derive joy from it? Or how do we get out of that sadness to joy? Number one is that when we feel a sense of sadness that's coming to us, we want to hijack that and turn it into bitterness in the sense that it's going to drive us toward change. So I'm disappointed. I'm upset about the way I am right now. Instead of sinking into that feeling, that's going to be my jetpack for change. Rebbe also has a thing on this. Why do people wait and they make a hachlata and they're waiting for the new year? They change everything in the new year. Well, everything worth doing is worth doing now. So if you have an idea of changing behavior, what are you waiting for the new year for? Do it now. Get it done. You decide you're going to be more healthy, so go for a walk. Eat an apple. Whatever you're going to do. Don't sink into the sadness. Use it. That's your jetpack for change. You don't like it, so change it. So we did use this negative feeling, but we used it for a very positive end. So that's one thing. The other thing that we have is the thing with the wrestlers, that when one side ups its game, the other side's going to up its game to match. So the fact that things are getting harder for you is not because you're worse, but dafka because you're better. Because you've gone to the next level. You didn't even see when you crossed the goal line. Checkpoint! Didn't even notice. You're already on a new track. But you are. So don't get despondent by the things. So don't be upset about those things. And then the last thing that we have is don't forget that this is what you were created for. Your expectations are in the wrong place, which is also, it's vital. You're getting upset right now because you didn't reach a certain goal, but was that goal that you expected to reach actually something for you to reach? And not in a way of trying to quash someone's hopes and dreams, but in a way of being realistic, which is all of what the beginning of Tanya was trying to explain to us what we're like. The whole beginning of Tanya was trying to tell us about our breakdown. If only we could be a vanity to fight these impulses, and you're going to be upset that you can't fight the impulse, that you haven't totally vanquished the impulse. Why are you upset? You're not a tzaddik. If a 2-year-old is upset that they're not running a marathon, you're like, listen, honey, maybe one day you can run a marathon, so we're going to keep training. But the fact that you're 2 is not a reason to be upset that you can't run a marathon. We have to have proper expectations. You got to remember what you were created for. Not just that, but by saying no, even though you haven't transformed the dark into light and you're still stuck in the savior kitchen, and all you're doing is churning out really spicy nachos instead of crazy cakes or something like that, God likes this too. There's 2 kinds of divine pleasures. God likes this too. Now we go to chapter 28. And 28 is, what do we do when we have an interruption? It's not just a physical interruption, but what do we do when there seems to be an impediment, something that's coming upon us, these negative things, when we're in the middle of a mitzvah? The example that's used off is specifically davening, but it's really kind of anything. I decide I'm going to have kavanah in something, or like I'm in the middle of lighting Shabbos candles, and I love Shabbos, and Shabbos candles bring peace and contentment. I'm so glad the week's over. So why am I busy thinking about something else during this time? And the person gets upset if they beat themselves up over it. Also, the same kind of idea. I'm doing a mitzvah right now. What gives? I'm trying to daven right now. Why is it so hard? So here we have specifically here, the rising of desires and other foreign thoughts during a time of holiness. Why is this coming upon me now? Why is it that I'm sitting in shul on Yom Kippur and it's supposed to be such a holy time and we're fasting? What I think about it is that I can't wait for Yom Kippur to be over so I can go to the shoe sale. We're not going to talk about eating. My brain is not here. Why? That's how it comes to I don't know if they came to the rabbi, they came to the Rebbe, a Rebbe, or whatever it was. And he says, I have a problem. I'm having machshavas zaros. I have a problem with these machshavas zaros. Why do these foreign thoughts keep coming into my brain? So the answer is, first you have to make them zaros, and then we'll worry about your machshavas zaros. That's not specifically covered in this chapter, but that's a side note, practical lesson for us. Why is it when I'm trying to daven, I keep thinking about the movie that I saw last night? Well, because you watched the same scene 14 times in a row, because you're trying to catch something, so you stuck that into your brain like a broken record. Of course it's going to be on your mind right now. Whatever you put into your brain, don't be surprised when you find it in your own brain. Like, hey, what are you doing here? You put me here. I don't know, where'd that coming from? You're so shocked. I'm so shocked all of a sudden. Why is my brain going to these places? Well, because you put it there. So don't be so surprised about that. We skipped already to the practical application of this whole thing. That's a starting point for us. But what do you do? Davening, I'm focused, I'm in the right place. I did hachanas for davening, I gave tzedakah, I did some learning. I'm focused, I'm concentrating. I'm not in a space where there's noise or anything like that and my mind is wandering. Or things that shouldn't be in my brain are coming into my brain at this time. Either desires, temptations, whatever. How come I can't stop thinking about eating chocolate cake at this time? Or something that's like a real, really shouldn't be there. So what's going on there? And of course, again, the person's going to feel very downhearted about this. Be very sad and frustrated. And they're going to beat themselves up over these things. So even if this is coming to during the time of davening, etc., 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 we have to remember what's going on here. The machshava zar comes from the klipa of the left part of the heart, waging war within the beinoni. If you only had one neshama within you, and you only had the nefesh kiss, your frustration would be a little bit more grounded in the fact of, didn't I get so far? Why is this still going on? But you forget that there's a battle going on inside of you. You forget there's 2 souls and they're vying for control. Until you become the tzaddik, your nefesh Bahamas is not excited with your kavanah and davening. It's probably not. Instead, it's thinking about other things. Business, TV, the carnival. Oh, is there a fly in here? It's thinking about other things. So you're upset, but you forgot that there's this war going on inside of you. We have to have the right approach to things. The left side of the heart is where the nefesh Bahamas is. That's its HQ, in the left side of the heart, because that's the side where all the blood gets pumped to that side. So nefesh Bahamas is considered something that's passion-driven. It's all about, what do I want now, kind of thing. So that's why the nefesh Bahamas is there. The nefesh kiss is in the brain, because mind over matter, and it's in the right side of the heart. Yeah, it's the left side of the heart. The blood gets pumped into the left side of the heart. So Tanya looks at that and it sees that the left side of the heart is the side that's full of blood. What is blood? Blood is life. Blood is passion, which is what the nefesh Bahamas is all about. So the machshavas zar, that's why it's coming from the klipa, it's coming from the nefesh Bahamas, it's coming from the negative forces. It's basically what it's saying. Al yipo liba bekirba liyas mizeh These actually, the translations are kind of paraphrases. They're not exact translations. So you should not be downhearted or feel dejected and despicable because of this occurrence during the service of God, because it must be extra joyous. The fact that these machshavos zaros are coming to someone, and also assuming that he has done what needs to be done, that he's not looking at his phone during davening kind of thing, or getting the book there, so he starts to look for a newspaper, whatever, he's not paying attention to other things. Assuming that, the fact that a machshavos zaros is coming into your mind is not something that you're supposed to beat yourself up about. It's supposed to be something that we realistically know that the negative forces, they're upping their game against you. We have to remember that there are two souls battling. Your nefesh elokis is probably fine. Your nefesh bahamis is starting to get all riled up because you're not paying attention to it right now, and it wants attention. It's very needy and demanding. We're not supposed to just, okay, that's it. It's all gone to hell, so forget all this. That's not what it's supposed to be. We're figuring this is how we were made to function. You can't get mad at a cat for not being a dog. It was made to be a cat, not a dog. A human being, you who were created with two souls, don't be upset about the fact that you have a struggle. I said, why am I still struggling? Why am I still struggling? I should have solved all this by now. No, because you're not a tzaddik. So that goes back here, the whole example of the wrestler. It is known that the way of combatants, and similarly of wrestlers, that when one is gaining the upper hand, the other exerts himself with all the resources of his strength to prevail. The reason why you have machshavos zaros now is specifically because you did everything you were supposed to not have it. You were so prepared. You were so on it. And the other side was like, wait a second. What happened to the little boy we used to be able to easily persuade? What happened to that little girl who was so easily distracted? Why is she so focused right now? Where did she find this concentration from? We don't like this. We can't leech off of her. We can't be parasites. So the other side is like, we gotta up our game. So you're getting upset about the fact that you got distracted. Don't forget there's a very powerful force working, I don't say working against you, but that's what its job is to create this challenge for you. The point is, this is not something that should cause us extreme sadness. This is something that then we're like, hey, I actually made it to the next level. The outlook is supposed to be a little bit more in line with that. Continuing with all this, the appearance of a foreign thought during davening indicates kavanah is substantive enough to give the animal soul cause for concern. It's like, wait a minute, why is it so involved in davening? I thought we were thinking about going to the park soon. I thought we were thinking about the beach. It's very needy, it wants all your attention. Kavanah is substantive enough to give the animal soul cause for concern, a realization which should gladden and encourage him to continue his efforts. Again, it all comes back to the fact we're subverting the sadness, we're also recontextualizing everything. So keep your focus, keep the blinders on. It gives an example of what this is like. Imagine if a person is trying to daven and next to them, kind of obnoxious person who's standing there trying to distract them. It gives an example of that. So how do you deal with someone like that? How do you deal with someone who's just trying to be obnoxious and distract you? If you know that someone's just innocently asking the question, or you can say genuinely asking a question, you know if you answer them, they go away. All they want is their answer. They're not there to disturb you. Versus the obnoxious person is actually there to disturb you. The only way to deal with someone like that is to not give them credence. The only way to deal with someone like that is to ignore them. So if the intention is not to disturb him, merely to ask him a question, so he can be rid of the disturbance by responding to the questioner. But when the intention is to disturb his davening, he gains nothing by responding. Answering one question will lead to another. As soon as you shift your focus from your davening, for example, as soon as you shift your focus to something else, something is going to pop up after that. And eventually, you've been totally distracted from what you're doing. I wonder if this kind of aligns with some of the questions you guys had asked originally about like the modern psychology thing. Because originally we were saying like, oh, you got to let the emotions pass through and you're kind of watching them pass through. It's kind of like the abbreviated way of describing it, the abridged way of describing it. But here the Alter Rebbe is like, don't even look at them. Don't even notice them. Because as soon as you're going to give them credence, they're just going to keep coming. And then you just daven and you don't even know anything that you said. It aligns in the sense of knowing that is paying attention to this. Is something productive going to happen to this? Or are we just doing this as sort of like an exercise sort of thing? Paying attention to anger and sadness is not necessarily productive unless it's going to propel us to something higher in the good way, in a good sense. If not, it's just a sinking. These are just sinking emotions when you give them too much credence and you dwell into them too much. Especially because going back to chapter 3, the more you sit on an emotion, the stronger you make it. The more you let it into your mind, the stronger feeling you're going to create for it. When you stew over something that someone told you, you get more angry about it. You don't get less angry about it. So I don't know if that's what it is. Now, specifically, why does the Alter Rebbe tell us this? Because we have here the pasuk, V'atank bavalto ben tishve logamata. Answer not a fool according to his folly, thus you become like him. Meaning, Ki ha'mesalek im menuvel mesava gamken. For he who wrestles with a filthy person is bound to become filthy himself. What happens when you wrestle with a pig in the mud? You get dirty. What's coming at you, these negative forces, the klipa, the sitra achra, this disturbance in your mind is just basically like a muddy person. You're going to start paying attention to it, you're just going to get muddied like it. You're not going to have solved anything. You're not going to have grown or gotten anything by paying attention to it, which is why the Alter Rebbe tells us, just don't even pay attention to it. Ignore it. Forget it. There is no benefit that comes from paying attention to it. All it does is distract you, and that distraction will lead to other distraction. The last thing that the Alter Rebbe tells us with this is that it may come to a point, a person might come to a point, they've really, really done all they could in this regard, and it just does not seem to be working. They gave the genuine effort. They really, really did what they were supposed to, and it's just not getting better. He seems just not able to handle this. So we could talk to God about this situation. First part of it is we have to approach from a place of humility. Really for someone to humble themselves before God and be like, this is much. I've really done everything, and this is a lot that's going on here. And the second thing that the Alter Rebbe emphasizes is that in this prayer, we're going to specify that it's not for me, it's for you. It's for God's sake. We beseech Hashem's mercies for His own sake. Since the soul is a part of God, in aiding the soul, He actually helps Himself, so to speak. God, I have enough shall kiss in here. It really, really wants to have Chabad during davening. If you could help me out with this kind of thing, then it's really for you, because this is a piece of you, and I'm trying to take care of it the way you want me to. The question of whether one is deserving of such aid becomes irrelevant, which is actually a pretty important point. So it's not a matter of, but I was so good today. I really, really worked so hard and doing all these other things for you, because once you start playing that game, God remembers everything. So if you start playing that game, God will be like, oh, you were very, very good with this. Well, what about Tuesday? What about Monday, Wednesday, Friday? God knows all of it. So don't even go trying to make it about you and all you've done or anything like that. Just say, God, this is for you. We're hoping to arouse this sort of compassion that a father has for his child. It's not a matter of the child's deserving. It's just a father has compassion for his son. Another interpretation, which is kind of just building on this, for his own sake. For his own sake is not part of the plea, but a guarantee. As in, this isn't specifically the prayer, but God will help you for His own sake. Hashem will certainly come to the aid of one who entreats Him and rescue his soul from the turbulent waters. This is for his own sake, for the soul is an actual part of Hashem. Because the nefesh elokis is a chelek elokam mamash, literally a part of God. The focus is not on me specifically. The focus is on this nefesh elokis that I have within me. God, this is your piece of you, and I'm trying to fight this battle for it. I'm not gaining ground here. Please come help this nefesh elokis, which is a piece of you, kind of thing. It doesn't matter if deserving or not. I have this nefesh elokis. I don't want to do it for it, which is basically for you. So for your sake, please. That's chapter 28. This chapter specifically focuses on when we're middle of spiritual work, a spiritual time when this occurs. Because the other chapters would deal with other things. If you're middle of planning a party, it doesn't matter where your brain is at the time that you're hanging up balloons. I don't know if that's specifically what you're asking, but like that, for example. I wouldn't say no to that. Why can you not turn to God if you're having a struggle? Doesn't mean what your answer is going to be, but why should you not turn to Him for anything that you're dealing with? But this chapter is specifically about things that cause sadness to us. Having a struggle goes all the way back to chapter 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. Goes all the way back to the beginning chapters about overcoming struggles. Or goes back even to the chapters about sin, reminding ourselves of what occurs in a moment of sin, of transgression. It's basically all the chapters we've done until now. But now we're specifically talking about not just how do we deal with the struggle. These are specific struggles that can lead to sadness. And we don't want sadness. Sadness is debilitating. And we are supposed to serve God with joy. So there's two parts here. Sadness holds us back. It sinks us, which is not very productive at all. And we're supposed to serve God with joy. We can ask God to lift something for us, but if you can lift, He's not going to lift it for you if He wants you to be lifting it, kind of thing. But praying to Him reminds you that He's with you and that you're not doing this alone. Maybe you will get a little bit of a boost. It's probably a good habit to get into anyways, to be in constant communication with Him. I think people misconstrue prayer, that because I pray for it, it automatically is going to happen. And it doesn't necessarily mean that. But that doesn't mean we shouldn't pray. Definitely a lot of prayer, and then you have to try to reach out to people who are wiser and smarter to guide you. We have resources, we have tools, we just don't like using them a lot of the time. Especially if that means we have to do something about it. For my limited experience, it seems that a lot of times when we just don't know anymore, it's either because there's a mental block that we have that we're limiting ourselves somewhere, we're just not acknowledging that, or we're not truly making use of the resources we have. Now, it's if you apply continual effort and you're getting stonewalled, that's totally in God's hand at that point. But sometimes you're just like, I don't know what to do. So yeah, you pray to God and you hope for an opening somewhere. But there is someone somewhere that has done something similar to you that you can figure out what options of the next step are. If you're in the middle of davening and something is coming into your brain right now that shouldn't be there, you don't pay attention to it and go away. Imagine throwing it out the window. Literally. You do not belong in my brain right now. Bye. I'm not paying attention to you. Bye. But no talking.